you're not having fun while you're doing it, then why do it?
So let's have fun.
Yeah.
You are doing a world premiere tonight. Is among the proudest things I've ever done. And I'm proud of it partially because it's the very reason I came to Northwestern, to find a home for that which so many of those people working in musical theater today don't know about, don't care about, just let pass by. I think I've really got the comedy of errors. I think I know what that is. Boys from Syracuse is harder. It's not as well written. George Abbott ain't no Shakespeare. He's great, and it keeps moving along, but it lacks the central conundrum. And it is our job to find it, and we do it in a number of ways. First, the show exists because of one central miracle. Well, The Boys from Syracuse is Rodgers and Hart's 1938 take on The Comedy of Errors by William Shakespeare. And in the very broadest terms, you have two sets of twins, both by a freak of nature were separated at birth, and have just in the course of this play, years later, discovered each other by setting an entire community on its ear, thinking that these two sets of twins, in fact, are individual people.
I'm Keith Dworkin, and I'm your music director.
Yay!
And arranger. I'll go into that in a minute.
I didn't even know the original score before I spoke to David about it. So I was unfamiliar with the show in any form, which was probably for the best. Because if I had known the show and really loved it in its kind of old, in its classic form, then I may have not made some of the drastic changes that we ended up making.
Working with Keith, he knows more about this era than you would think possible for a 21-year-old kid. He's an incredible accomplished musician, but the very most important thing is he is a breathtaking collaborator. There wasn't a moment, not one moment, where I felt he was doing anything other than moving the show forward brilliantly.
Though we've worn out sandals and our funds are low, there's a light that's burning in the patio. I want to go back to dear old Syracuse. It is no metropolis, it has no big acropolis, and yet there is a quorum of cuties in the forum. Though the men wear jackets that are out of style, they will always greet you with a friendly smile. I want to go back to dear old Syracuse. Easy now, boss. I want to go back to dear old Syracuse. Shuffling back to Syracuse, eh? That's right. I got an idea, boss.
The artistry lies in the distance between what they know and want to do and what I know and what I want to do. And that discussion arrives at true collaboration. And that's a thrill. We're dealing with a style that is very rooted to the period that the show was developed. The show was written in 1938. We're doing a real swing feel. Strangely, a lot of the show already exists there. When you hear Sing for Your Supper, you hear the Andrews Sisters. That's what it is. But we're finding a way to really move, particularly into gospel, blues, and swing, a lot of swing.
David was very excited about this idea of the Zoot Suit era. I sort of did a lot of research into that. So they have this real indulgence to them and whimsy. And that music, too, is something that we were really excited by. So a lot of the men have that kind of silhouette.
And I was very fortunate to meet 3 graduate students who are designers, and they've done an extraordinary job. The design and the whole concept of the show kind of go hand in hand. The specificity of the era, Veronica really picked up in her wonderful costumes, both it's Mediterranean palette, but I asked her to do the impossible thing, which is kind of imagine that we were doing Boys from Syracuse or Comedy of Errors at the Cotton Club in Harlem. Imagine designed by people who were very familiar with their time and their period, but not thoroughly familiar or comfortable with Mediterranean. So you take a, kind of New York in the summer, mixing it with bits of Mediterranean, and you come up with this wonderful world. The designers were wonderful, and all of them found different ways to interpret this concept in ways that surprises me. And part of the joy of directing a group of kids is finding yourself surprised by that thing which you think you know, and yet those moments where it transcends what you know and becomes richer and deeper are those things that I'm always on the lookout for. At the end of the day, they are my collaborators and need to be treated as such, and they're talented. And yes, they're young, but they also expend an inordinate amount of effort to try to get it right, whatever that is. So although they may lack, 4 or 5 times the experience of the designers I usually work with, they work 4 or 5 times harder than the designers I usually work with, just because it's so new to them. And they have to, but they do.
The way he set up the mock stage with the lights and everything, and just seeing all the beautiful colors and how rich it is and how beautiful it's going to be. I'm so excited to get in my costume and get on stage and run around with all that beauty right there on that stage. It's going to be amazing, it seems, and I'm really excited about it.
Bottoms up, fill the cup. Bottoms up, refill the cup. Get the feeling that the sky's the ceiling and you're high, high, high. Elbows bend, I'm your friend. Elbows bend and voices blend. Start believing that the sky's the ceiling and you're high, high, high. Take another and another and another. Then take another and another and another. Stick it to me, brother, drink the thirst, feel the thirst. But the first won't kill the thirst. Life means plenty, it begins at 20 when you're high, high, high. Bottoms up, bottoms up.
In a rehearsal process, you are so limited in time that if you're not always striving for 100%, if you're not always striving to give the very best that you can every minute, you will have wasted a golden opportunity to get the show where it needs to be by opening night. Most people here realize that. So the dynamic in a rehearsal is very, very different than it is in a regular classroom. Really, as we go through today, give it your best shot, give it your best attack. I'll be giving it's a work session. So, but if it starts really giving some steam and starting to feel like something, I'll let it go. We'll see how it goes.
The rehearsal process, I know, will be really fast and furious, but in a rehearsal process with David, it's always fun. And it's such a safe environment to take risks and to really just try anything. And you know that you can laugh about it if it doesn't work, and if it does, then it's a great thing that you found.
We've all gone to bed. Go away. You're making too much noise. Slam.
Okay, ready?
Who are you?
Now you're at the other, sorry.
Dromio, slam. What? Who?
You heard him. Dromio. Slam.
An imposter. Loose, for heaven's sake, dear woman. You're being imposed upon.
Okay.
Come on, open up that door.
Guys, you know where the physical activity is about to go. So I just need a bigger ramp up. I love that you're trying for. I just need it to be a more seamless ramp till we become a mob control. It helps you actually if you actually take a little more of this pace thing. It happens, and so. Go ahead and just take it from your line, yelling. Everybody, mob mentality now.
He wants the best for all of us, and it's apparent every day in everything that he says and with the way that he works with us, and I love that about him because a lot of times directors can tear you down and rip you apart and make you feel like you're worthless, but David really doesn't give you that environment to have to deal with. It's very encouraging, and I trust him, and I'm just really fortunate, I think, to be able to work with him, you know, being that he's done so many great things thus far and is just getting bigger and better here at Northwestern. So I consider it a great opportunity to work with him.
In Verona, my late cousin Romeo was 3 times as stupid as my Dromio. Then he fell in love and then he died of it. Poor half-wit. This can't be love because I feel so
just
well.
To let you know, wait,
No,
let's just try to get that beat right.
I have trouble with it.
Yeah. So so you'll spike it. Yeah, that's great. Just spike so there's room.
Yeah, sorry. Go.
So we'll figure out where it is. So when you do the hand,
It should be all the way up there.
here, and then when she rises to sing, you start down here, so you don't stand. And you want on your half wit, you're going to go in for the kiss. Your half wit, and that's when she's going to run away. And as she runs out in there, then you're going, whoa! So there may be a slightly longer pause after half wit before this can't be love. Cool.
He both has a very specific vision and is incredibly open-minded, where he knows what he wants a number to turn out as, that this can't be love, the dance break should suddenly snap into this kind of different feeling, and then they're in dance world and things happen. But he doesn't need the music composed beforehand, and if I say, can we add 2 counts of 8 at the end, or actually just 1 count of 6? And he'll say, oh yeah, sure, and then I'll just create the choreography on the spot. So he pre-plans and has these ideas, but at the same time, the process can be very dynamic.
My heart does not stand still, just hear it beat. This is too sweet to be love. This can't be love because I feel so well, but still I love. But still, I love to look in your eyes.
I am the Duke, and you do not mess with the Duke.
There's like a unique bar where it's not just teacher-student, it's not just director-actor. There's a casual atmosphere, yet also a professional atmosphere. So it's a melding of what I've felt in main stage shows and student shows.
In a rehearsal hall, I do not know how to be a teacher. My job is to be a collaborator, and it is their job to be a collaborator too, and they need to abandon the limitations of simply being students. We've got a job to do. We've got an opening night. We have a very short time to get to that opening night, and there's a lot of stuff that we need to figure out together. If I am simply giving them a production, that is as unartistic and dead on arrival as any artistic process I can think of. I don't have the capability of doing that. It's definitely that you're upset he doesn't remember you, but the two things are this. Oh, I see. You can't say you're from Syracuse and know me because you'll die too. And there's even this fatherly, I understand, of course, you are embarrassed by me. And you're trying to reconcile a child's incredibly bad behavior. You know, I mean, a betrayal on the highest. You're trying to reconcile that with what you know. So that is the moment that's yours. Everything else is about him. Cool. Take it again. I see the man who might deliver me.
He creates just this huge sense of freedom and safety, where as an actor you can take chances and enter a dialogue with the director. It feels like such a collaborative process where it gives you boundaries to work in and ideas to bounce your own off of. And so it's not like you're left in another land by any stretch of the imagination, but he just creates a space where you can take chances and bring all that you can to it without feeling like you're being judged, like there's necessarily a right answer or a wrong answer.
But you want the same paused humor matching?
I don't know. I've cut out the bit with Kevin because that was too Looney Tunes. That was too comic. The weird thing is what it needs to be is true. There can always be comedy. But if the comedy gets in the way of what is true, then we cut the comedy. What has to be is true. And I wasn't getting a sense that there was any real threat. Although we are taking it to a good place, there needs to be enough of a threat. It's the weird thing. The only thing that tells us what's important in this world is you. There is no rule book that says, oh yes, of course he's from Syracuse. That must mean he's the spawn of Satan. It does not logically follow. You have to act that for us to realize that. That makes sense? Yeah. So we don't want to lose. It's that back thing. We don't want to lose what's true, even though it's not realistic.
Look! There he is! Oh! Old man from Syracuse!
Go. That's going to be great. So much better. There is this kind of off-the-wall, absurdist chemistry between those people that are acting on stage and those people watching in the audience, and something about that chemistry actually transcends the written word. In this day and age, we are so text-driven that I find it a real challenge for the students to take a lot of old, moderately funny vaudevillian gags, and for them even to grasp what about the original line might have been funny in the first place. And they were willing to kind of go on the journey and become much more increasingly aware of how the style of the piece can actually transcend the individual humor of the lines. So sometimes it's not necessarily that the gag is necessarily funny, but it is funny in its nonsensical sequencing into this script, into this story.
All right, I give up! I give up! I give up! Take this man to jail. He's from Syracuse. What? What did I do? No! Let me go! No!
Mistaken identities of twins is an enduring theme in the very basic roots of world theater. And in telling the story on a commedia level, which was very close to the period out of which Comedy of Errors was originally written, you can imagine that that is a world of kind of broad physical farce and comedy, etc. So when dealing with this subject matter, I want to look at those kinds of behaviors that live, because this is a musical, as close to choreography as you can, with still making it zany, funny staging. Then you guys come in slowly, slowly. No, no, I give up. And then you're right where you belong. Okay. And 1, 2, and 3. Wiggle, 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 wiggle. Collapse. Totally great. And the idea of physical comedy extends back to the very beginning of storytelling. How we stage comedy is something that I've spent a lot of time looking at and developing.
In acting in particular, something that I've come to love is comedy, which I had never focused on in high school. I had never even thought about it. And in coming into school here, it's something that I've really loved being a part of. So yeah, it's really exciting. There's constantly something that you're learning.
Now the powerful anesthesia in my fist, and the perfect wrist to give your neck a twist. Their hammerlock holds, I've mastered a few, and everything I've got belongs to you. Share for share, share alike. You get struck each time I strike. You for me for me. I'll give you plenty of nothing. Here's one marriage vow that I'll reverse. I will not be yours for better, but for worse.
I don't like that game.
I can hit the bull's eye, I mean with my shoe. And everything I've got belongs to you.
Yes! Give me. Score for my team. I'm the Duke.
Then he said, okay, and this is where we go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The Duke. 1, 2. And I was like, what's going on? This is not in the original. This is something new that David came up with and is kind of interesting. And the joke is, it's the Duke, like Duke Ellington. So it should sound like Duke Ellington, but hip. And I was like, Duke Ellington really isn't hip in 2007. So it got my wheels turning, and coming up with that music and knowing how I was going to orchestrate it at that rehearsal really informed the rest of the process, in that it had to sound old. It had to sound like it was written originally a long time ago, even the music that never existed before our version. But it should still sound hip and fresh, and something that David could feel would relate to a lot of people, and that students coming would say, oh, that is really fresh sounding.
The Duke! The Duke! The Duke!
Hi, boys!
Oh, yeah!
I've dedicated my life to a very singular passion, which is to discover new ways to tell old stories and really impact those stories with music. And to have the honor of being in a room full of people who are not jaded by the many musicals that they may have done over the course of their career, but in fact can bring to a process the very sense of wonder that I try to instill in a professional company.
Is there anything more foolish and pathetic than a neglected wife?
Come on, sis, smile.
I know. Laugh and the world laughs with you.
Weep
and
and
you
you
ruin
ruin
your
your
makeup. Let's get back to work.
Do we not have a shirt?
I weave with brightly colored
Get the
strings
shirt up
to keep my mind off other things. So ladies, let your fingers dance and keep your hands out of romance. Lovely witches, let the stitches keep your fingers under control. Cut the thread, but keep the whole heart whole. Merry maids can sew and sleep. Wives can only sew and weep. Falling in love with love is falling for make-believe. Falling in love with love is playing the fool. Caring too much is such a juvenile fancy. Learning to trust is just for children in school. I fell in love with love one night when the moon was full. I was unwise with eyes unable to see. I fell in love with love everlasting. Love fell out with me.
I'll go see if he's arrived.
I fell in love with love one night when the moon was full. I was unwise with eyes unable to see. I fell in love with love everlasting.
So on one level, I experience from them the wonderful thrill of newness to something that I know very, very well and I've been doing for the last 40 years. It doesn't feel old in their presence. And truthfully, I can repeat an old Jimmy Durante gag that is half a century old, and suddenly I can either be lauded as a genius for having come up with something that's been in the cosmos forever, or get a lot of quizzical looks which tell me that gag no longer works.
When day ends, you have lots of friends who will guard
just want to have a few minutes with you. I have kind of two thoughts to share with you, one as a teacher and one as a collaborator. As a teacher, I just want to caution you that as you get laughs and as people really embrace what you're doing, as they will because what you're doing is amazing and how you're doing it is amazing, I don't want you to mistake the fact that we are telling a story in a silly style with a silly story. It's not a silly story. What makes the show work, what makes the production work, is we dare, I think, to say that this is actually a timeless story about something that matters. It is about a reunion of a family. It is about redemption. It is about really what life, relationship, caring, all of that is about.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are at places for the top of the show. If you could go to your spots, wherever they will be, we'll check you in, and we're gonna get going. Have a good show.
Oh, Diogenes, find a man who's on. Oh, Diogenes, wrap him up for me. Oh, Diogenes, find a man who's solid, solid. Cook that fish if it's in the sea. Oh, hunt him, trail him, catch him, nail him if he is free. Have you got your stick? Have you got your lantern? Get your lantern. Can you do the trick and produce him, please? Ring that bell, ring that bell. Oh,
program at Northwestern is terrifying and it's incredible. And it's terrifying not in a bad way, in a really good way, because you're constantly surrounded by people that are so talented that you're always learning from. And it's the same reason why it's incredible. It's a lot to take in, and then you kind of find your inner peace with, but this is why it's so great.
Part of what drew me to Northwestern in the first place was the fact that it was conservatory level training without the chains of a conservatory. So, the training is wonderful and the faculty is amazing and it's basically the best of the best here. But you also have people who are interested in things other than theater, which I think is really important to kind of have a well-rounded life, and actually the interests that you have outside of acting can in turn make you a better actor or a better performer. So I think the conservatory level theater training in a college environment was really what hooked me to Northwestern.
There's the leeway to kind of grow into yourself, and there's no one set path to go by. I mean, I'm kind of an exception. I'm not in the musical theater program yet. I'm in, the musical here, and it's really nice that there's no rule that you have to be in like you have to take the classes, or you have to be a theater major, or you really just do what you want, and if you're passionate enough, you can make it possible. And that's kind of what they say here, and David really encourages that to his students.
What we get at Northwestern are people who've worked very hard to get there. You don't get to Northwestern by accident, and that I really appreciate. You also get a liberal arts student, so you don't stay at Northwestern. You certainly don't stay in the theater at Northwestern without actively pursuing much more widespread roots of literature and theology and philosophy. And so generally the student tends to be more in tune with the kind of hard work it takes to be in the room. I know more because I've been around longer, but in terms of innate intelligence, this is absolutely the top of the pile. These are incredible students, and they are capable of listening to theatrical concepts intellectually and applying that into their acting. It's not simply a visceral gestalt. It is a much more integrated liberal arts process.
Northwestern is so wonderful that they let me design my own major, and right now I have an independent study, which I will get credit for this production for. I'm working with David Bell, and my name is big in the program. Like, it's still counting for a class, and it's still really under this academic umbrella. And Northwestern doesn't feel like it has to remove itself from anything that's not specifically in the curriculum. That's just a great freedom that we all really take advantage of and enjoy.
Education, all education, needs to be a dialogue. Not just in the Socratic sense of dialogue, but a real dialogue between the wants and the intentions and the knowledge of the students, and an overreaching knowledge of the professor, knowing what is possible to be gleaned from a life in the musical theater.
We're all a bunch of kids, just trying to get through college and hopefully have really great careers, and that's an excellent way for us to just have that glimpse of hope that it can happen, you can be successful in this business, and you can meet great people, and great opportunities can just come to you if you just go to an audition.
Now, this is a unique community. Chicago is a lot more accessible to a young actor than New York and Los Angeles is, and it tends to embrace those ensemble members who actually can create innovative, new, daring theater. You think of, the House Theater or Looking Glass Company, and then of course Chicago Shakespeare and the Goodman and Court Theater. There's a wonderful abundance of opportunity in Chicago. It allows them to do exactly what they came to Northwestern to do, which is to interface with a professional life in the theater.
This production has turned out to be such a place of opportunity for all of us. The possibilities are literally endless, it seems, with David being here, and then the Rodgers and Hart people are coming, and the way he's revamping the production to, give it a jazzy, gospel, bluesy feel. That's going to be a lot of fun, and I'm speechless, literally. It's amazing. I never would have expected this just from being here at Northwestern and, trying to do the best work that I can. And here I have this opportunity to do great work with great people and hopefully have it just continue on from there and turn into something really amazing and spectacular.
To watch 20-year-olds who have no affection necessarily naturally to this score, they have no natural affection to vaudevillians or the way theater was created 75 years ago. To watch them rediscover this wonderful piece of theater and make it their contemporary has been a constant surprise. You would think that impossible on some level. And on level after level, I walk into rehearsal and found not only is it not impossible, but in fact, it is the reason we're here. It is the reason that makes this journey more unique, more rewarding, and more powerful than other journeys might be.
His theme for so many years of his teaching, what we learned was take old songs and make them your contemporary. Find what's true for you in old songs. And I think that that's what we're doing with this musical. And I thought that would be a really fun chance for me to test out finding truth in this zany, crazy world with lyrics that are admittedly outdated in some ways and themes that may seem a little clunky and silly now that we've passed through sort of, our Jason Robert Brown and our Stephen Sondheim phase, but just to take this something old and really infuse it with something new and exciting.
The work that you've done, the work that Keith has done, has been, and all of the stage manager, all of the crew, is an extraordinary gift. And it's an extraordinary gift to the belief that our cultural heritage, your cultural heritage, the heritage of that which you intend to do for a living is worth holding on to, preserving, and breathing new life into. There's a moment in O Diogenes where I say, if Rodgers and Hart were here in the audience today, they would see an audience responding, I suspect, even better to the song than when it originally opened in 1938. And that, to me, is an accomplishment that needs to be cherished and protected. I'm very proud of all of you. Have a great show tonight. Enjoy the run. I just love it.